Hi, welcome to Office Puzzle. My name is Lauren and I'm thrilled to show you this demo presentation of our platform. We're going to see some admin features such as agency administration, creation of users, clients, and more day-to-day activities such as billing claims and payroll. In the clinical aspect, we're going to see client management, events, documentation, data collection, and some service plan configuration. So stay tuned. Once you log in into the platform, we're going to reach the home dashboard. If you log in as an administrator, we're going to show you KPIs or statistics related to your company. You're going to see your active clients, inactive, same with the users, some documentation that needs your immediate attention, and you're going to have access to the agency itself to do more day-to-day admin activities. These banners are going to be yours, meaning that you decide what images to publish for your users to see. In this tool right here, you're going to be able to publish those images. If you log in as a regular user, think of a technician, the visualization is going to be a little bit different because we're going to have statistics related to the clients that are linked to that specific user. And they're going to have the accesses, those will be the link to the dashboard, the client's dashboard, linked to that user as well. So let's jump then to the agency dashboard. For that, only administrators, of course, will have access to this part. I will have to click on the agency. And this will take me to the admin dashboard. Here in the admin dashboard is where we do day-to-day activities as administrators. It is where we review expiring documents. It's where we also review clinical documentation. It's where we conduct billing and payroll reports. It's where we manage clients and users. And it's where we do also all the configuration for the agency. Once we click on configuration, we start in account profile by adding the name of your company, your logo, your phone number, all the information, NPIs, all the information related to the agency. It's where we also tell the system what type of service we're going to be delivering. And based on that type of service, then on billing, we're going to be doing all the configuration for the billing codes and the insurance companies that you're going to be contracted with. If you're going to be working with a specific clearinghouse, we can also do the setup of those clearinghouses that you're going to be connected. If we click on billing codes, we're going to see the list of billing codes. The way of adding them is very simple. Just click on add new billing code and we can select from CPTs to HCPCS and add the code. If you tell us in advance that you're delivering a certain type of service and you send out these billing codes, we can definitely do this setup for you. But as an admin, remember, you're always going to have access to modify your company as necessary. In payers is where we see all those insurance companies that were contracted. We can always add new payers. We can create the manual or select from a catalog of pre-created insurance companies. Once we add the insurance company, we can also add different health plans. So maybe we have Sunshine Health, and within Sunshine, again, we have different health plans. So we can always add more here, and it's going to show us different tabs. You decide the name of the health plans, of course, based on the contracts that you have with the insurance company. Once we select the insurance, then we're going to start adding the billing codes and the approved rates for each of those billing codes. The process of adding them is just click in here, and in rates we can add all those codes and approve rates. Once we click on new rate, we can add alias, we can add the amount, and these are the billing codes that we previously created that I showed you a few seconds ago once we create the billing codes. Remember, we are going to be helping you during the reporting process, this setup, if you have any questions, but as an admin, you're more than welcome to do these configurations as well. One thing that I was missing, clearinghouses. These are the clearinghouses that we're connected with. If you already have an account with one of them, we connect. If not, we can definitely guide you in the process as well if necessary. So these are the ones, again, that we are working or we're connected. If you work with one that is not on this list, let us know, and we're always going to try to do the integration with them. Then we have credentials. Here in credentials is where we add all the credentials of those users that are going to be delivering services in our company. For the credentials, we're going to have the option of adding manual, meaning new ones, or we can add from a pre-created catalog that we offer. Just select the ones that corresponds to your company and we're going to be adding them here. Once we select one specific credential, we can link specific billing codes to that credential. And in that way, we guarantee that when this technician is creating their events, we're going to always be linking those events to the correct billing codes so we can build this later on and once we create those billing claims. This is an example of a company with multiple types of services. So that's the reason why we're seeing different credentials. Again, this varies based on your company. Remember that Office also can be used in this case for ABA therapy, occupational, physical therapy, speech, mental health, all the different types, PSR, TSM, and also music and art therapy. So we're very flexible on that configuration, and again, this is what allows us to work with different type of services, this specific configuration that we're doing. Just to mention again, during the onboarding process, we sit down with you and we verify that all this configuration is ready prior to you creating users and clients, just to guarantee that the process is going to be smooth once you give access to your users. So that was some credentials. Then we have events. Events is the place where we tell the system what type of visits we're going to be creating. And right now I'm showing 3 different types of visits. I'm showing appointments, assessments, and supervision. But again, this is what you decide. You can add other type of services, other types of visits here. And within each one, you can do a series of configuration or restrictions as well. For example, here I'm showing appointments, and I'm going to link to these appointments a series of billing codes that can only happen with that event. There's also other restrictions that we can place. For example, if concurrent billing is not allowed with your insurance company, we track it here. If there are any limitations in schedule, meaning that you decide was the earliest that your users can start working, was the latest that they can work with clients, if there's a limit in duration of visits per day, per week, if they need to rest one calendar day per week, all those limitations we can place it here at the event level. And the idea is that once you create a visit, if we're not meeting the requirements of your company, the system is going to give you an alert and it's going to tell you, hey, we cannot book this appointment for this specific reason. And in this way, we guarantee that the event it's not created, it's not booked, and in this way, it's not going to be billed or included on a billing claim later on. So we do all these restrictions here. Again, your account manager is going to sit down with you and answer any questions that you may have here. And we're going to try to guarantee that all the restrictions are placed based on the requirements of your company. Other details here is that if you need to track EVV, we can do with your location. We can also track driving time if it's something that you're interested in your company. So this is just an example. There's a lot of details here in the event configuration, and again, it's something that we touched once we do the configuration of your company. Then we have payment profiles. Payment profiles, this is linked to payroll. If you're connected with a specific payroll company, think Gusto, ADP, I think that I have some here, QuickBooks, we can also connect with them, right? What we do is we generate a report, like a table, with all your users, the number of hours that they work, and with a single submission or file, you can submit this information to these payroll companies and that will take care of the deductions for you. Important, if it's possible, we don't do deductions. What we do is a list with a summary, let's call it that way, with the total number of hours that the user work based on different rates that you can put on the system. And we calculate the gross amount. All this information, we can submit it to these payroll companies and they will take care of all the deductions and submitting payments to the users. Okay, then we have physicians. Physicians is just a list. You can create a list of common physicians that you receive referrals from, and in this way you don't have to add them manually each time that you have a new client. This is completely optional. The system works without it. But I mean, again, if you receive always referrals from same physicians, just save the information here, the name, the office, address, the NPIs of the physicians, and we need this information, right, to submit billing claims later on. Service plan. Service plan, the best way of calling this is a library, and this is unique to your company. You decide, you create your own library, and this is just an example of what a library looks like with a company that is offering different types of service. If you offer one in particular, you're only going to have that library with the programs. In the case, I'm just going to show one that says art therapy. So if I click here, what you do as an administrator of a clinical director is that you can pre-create programs for your company, and these programs can be organized on different categories. You decide how many and how to name them. Just click on new category, add the name, and what we do is we add a new tab here. Once you select the tab, you can start adding the programs within that specific area. And what this is going to do is that each time that you have a new client, you don't have to create the programs from zero. You have the option of going to this library, select the different programs that you're going to be working with your client, and we're going to be transferring that information. Again, it's a library, just you don't have to create programs from zero each time that you have a client, a new client in your company. If we touch one from ABA, or those categories probably are going to be different. We're going to have behaviors, replacement programs, skill acquisition programs. Here I'm showing other areas such as attention, attendance skills, visual spatial, academy, play and social. You decide these names, okay? So once we select one, we're going to have the bank of pre-created programs that I can select and add the behaviors, in this case, that correspond with the client. So going back to the configuration, we were here in service plan. The next step would be data collection. Here's where we do certain configurations for data collection. Overall, we include those by default. If you need to make any modifications, remember that you have access as an administrator. You can always ask us if you have any questions. These are global configurations of data collection. This is not linked to a specific client. Definitely, we're going to see more of this once we reach the clinical part of the client. Restrictions, signatures. Signatures is also configuration for the digital signatures. For example, if you would like to add IP address, timestamp, QR codes for verification purposes, if you would like to capture the geolocation for the signature, you can do all those configurations here at the signature level at the agency. Restrictions and exemptions will be a place to create restrictions, right? We usually create restrictions of 3 levels. We have them at the agency level, at the user, and then at the clients. The best way of describing these restrictions, they are like blocks that we place on the calendar. Here, for example, at the agency level, a common example are holidays. Some days, insurance company, they simply don't pay or the company is closed. So with months in advance, actually, I can block those specific days. So if I try to create an event, it's not going to let me, not even if I try to create them by mistake, right? So Christmas is one example, but again, you decide these blocks at the agency level as an administrator. You can also place restrictions to a specific user, and we're definitely going to be talking more about HR documentation restrictions in the following minutes. But if a user is on vacation, in a medical leave, or for any other reasons, you would like to block the user for a certain period of time, this will be the place to go. We also offer at the client's level. It's not very common. We usually don't block clients, but if there's any issues with the insurance company or maybe a client's on vacation and caregiver informed us, we can place that block on the calendar so we know that during that time we can deliver service. So that was some restrictions and exemptions. Locations is just general configuration, right? About date structure, maybe time zone. we try to put all this by default once we create your account, but if you're in a different time zone, you're more than welcome to modify it. Even the language, Office also, we have different different languages on the platform, so you can definitely modify those as well based on your location. We return here to banners. We already talked about banners. Those are the pictures that we saw once we log in on our home dashboard. From here, you can always modify them, and you get to put some that are active, or maybe you can program some that are going to happen on the following days, meaning that you don't have to be on top of it each time. So definitely you can do those, configure those banners here. Template documents. This is referring to the clinical documentation that your users are going to be creating later on. And these template documents, we include some templates by default based on the type of service that you're offering. If it's ABA, we put the templates there. If it's speech therapy, we put the templates there. Something that it's very important here is that oral documentation is personalized to your company. We put this by default, but if you need to do any modifications, you can let us know. And whatever template you design today, in a PDF, on a Word, you can give it to us, and we're going to take that template and we're going to digitalize it. So again, these are just examples of templates. We're going to see more of them, more of those on the clinical part. But again, think of this as customizable to your company. Clinical documents and HR documents. These two are very similar. Clinical is documentation that we request for our clients, while HR documents, these are documentation that we request for our users. So if I click on clinical, it's usually we usually see intake form, medical referrals, CDs, IP from school. This list is yours, meaning that you can add new ones manual, or you can select from a pre-created catalog of clinical documents that we recommend. The idea behind clinical documents is that once we create this list at the agency level, then we're going to reach the client's dashboard. And on the client's dashboard, we can upload a copy of each of these documents. And we can also tell the system if we have an expiration date, we can add that expiration date, and we're going to be tracking that expiration date. So 30 days in advance of the expiration date, we're going to start sending notifications so you know that it's time to renew a document that is about to expire. Think of clinical for clients and HR for your users. So here we're going to see more of an application form, all the certifications that users need to complete, CPR, HIPAA, OSHA. This list is yours, okay? So remember that you can add new ones manually, or you can select from a pre-created catalog of HR documents that we recommend. Once we reach the dashboard of each of your users, you can upload a copy of the document. You can add an expiration date if we have an expiration date for the document, and we're going to take care of notifying the user 30 days in advance, every Monday, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week prior, that they need to renew a documentation that is about to expire. Now, as an administrator, there are different features or personalizations that you can choose here. For example, if you would like the user to upload the document directly into the platform, you can mark here yes. And what we do is we allow them pretty much to upload a copy. Once they upload a copy, the status is going to be changed to pending for revision. And you as an administrator, you're going to receive a notification letting you know that this person uploaded a document that needs your revision. So they can upload it, but we don't mark it as deliver it, because again, we need to verify that the document that was uploaded, it's the correct one. Restrict is a very interesting one. Restrict, there's certain documentation that it's required for them to work. Think of a CPR, for example. If we have a certification that is required, we mark it as restrict. And what we do is once we reach the expiration date, if the user is still not submitting the document, we block their account, meaning that, well, they can log in into the platform, but they can't have new visits with the client once they have a required document expired. As an admin, you decide all these configurations. And again, if you have any questions, you can always reach back to us, or in this case, reach your account manager, and they're going to be more than happy to help you during this process. And with that, I think we reached, well, no, we have also agreements. Here's where you're going to find all the agreements that you signed. And rates, this is linked to payroll as well. If you have like specific, like global rates configuration, think for a second that all your technicians, you have a base rate, a base of payment for those technicians. You can set it up here at the agency level, and then it's easier to add it on the clinical part. Well, in this case, on the configuration of the user. So this is all the information on configuration. Wrapping up, most of this configuration, we take care of it. So once you request the creation of your account, we're going to ask a few questions about the type of service that you're offering, information about your company, and we're going to try to do all the majority of this configuration. So once you log in into the platform, you don't need to create credentials or billing codes. But as an administrator, you always will have the option of adding them. Once we have that account created, then you're going to meet with your account manager, and that person is going to go over all this configuration with you one more time, just to verify that everything is ready to start creating clients and users. So let's go back to the admin dashboard, and we're going to start talking about creation of clients and users. So I click on home. And all this time we were here on configuration. Now I'm going to click where it says users. This will take me to my user list. If I need to add new users, I can click on action, new user, complete information, and then click on create. And we're going to take care of notifying the user with the instructions of how to access the platform. Also, we're going to be adding, once you click on create, we're going to add the box with information that you just created. If you're coming from other platforms, we also have the option of import bulk users at the same time. So just talk with us if you're coming from other platforms. So what we do here is we usually you get like an Excel format, document with all this information, so you can import it in Office Puzzle. And what we do is we create all the information at the same time. So you will have this for your users and also for your clients. If I click on any of these users, let me use Robert as an example, this one down here, it will take me to what we call the user dashboard. Each user, they're going to have access to their own dashboard. So here, Robert, he can definitely see his calendar, the days that he has the appointments. He can see reports of days that he worked. He can see the documentation that he created. He will have access to his HR documents and the status of each of those HR documents that we create at the agency level. And if we allowed Robert to upload a copy, he will do it here. He can also see invoices of payment if you're using the payroll section within Office Puzzle. Now, he's not going to have access to manage. Manage, only an administrator will see and manage this part of the platform. And as an admin, once I create the user, I will have to complete each of these tabs that we're seeing here. The first one is the general information tab. Pretty much what we have here is demographic information. So complete all the demographic information for your user. Then you're going to assign the credential to this user. For that, just click on where it says new credential, and you're going to have here the list of all credentials that you created specifically for your company. So look for the one that corresponds to the user, select it, add the identification number and the expiration day. And we're going to take care of notifying you once this certification is about to expire. This step is important because it tells the system what type of service Robert is delivering, but also what type of billing code he can create on the events based on his credential. Then we have clients. These are the clients that Robert is currently working with. We can add multiple clients. Right now he's working with Emily, John, Angelina, but if I need to add a new client, I just click here and it will take me to my clients list. I select the client and that will create that link. If Robert is no longer working with the client, I can always remove that access. Again, this is not going to delete Robert's information or the client's information. It's just that Robert is not going to longer have access to John's dashboard. Then we have required documents. Here we see that HR document list that we created at the agency level. And right now I have that the first aid of Robert is expiring on 7 days. So we have been sending emails to Robert for the past month. If he submits the document via email, so he replies to that email with the documentation, as an administrator, I can always update information here. I can add the new expiration date, let's see, for 2025. Add a copy of the document, and this is something very interesting. You can upload a new copy, but we keep records. We keep all the records of all those documents that you upload before. So you're going to have all the track of all the history of all those documentation if you need to request during the backups, that we're definitely going to be talking more about backups in the few minutes and the following minutes. So just mark it as delivered, and then the process will repeat the process with the rest of the documentation. Then we have rates and payment profiles. These two are linked to payroll. Here you can tell us how much you're going to be paying this user. So you can add the amount, you can link it to specific billing codes, even you can link it to specific clients if for some reason this user is receiving a different rate with one client or the other. This is not common, but it's there if you need it. I can definitely add multiple billing codes if the user is delivering more than one service, so I can add those as well. If different billing codes are paid with different rates, I can also add that information here. And remember, this is linked to payroll. So later on, once you're creating payroll reports, you can tell us, hey, I'm paying from this day to this day. We're going to bring all the hours with the billing codes that correspond to each of those hours, and we're going to do all the math for you. Again, gross amount. For deductions, we have to submit all this report to your payroll company. MFAs is to add an extra layer of protection. To log in into a platform, you're going to have your unique URL to your company. You're going to enter your email, in this case your user ID, and your password. All passwords are encrypted, meaning that only the user is the one that knows their password, not even us. We keep the passwords. But if you would like to add MFAs, what we do is we send a unique numeric code via SMS, email, or the Google Authenticator app, and they need to enter using their username, password, and this unique numeric code. We definitely recommend MFAs to all accounts. Backups. Backups is the place to request the bulk of information. Think for a second that you need all the records for Rover since 2020 to today's day. You don't have to go year by year, month by month. Just go to backups and tell us, hey, I need all the documents. I need all the HR documents, all the history of the CPR, for example. And I need them since 2020 to today's day. Just select the time. With a simple click, we're going to gather all that documentation. We're going to put it on PDF, organize it on folders chronologically, and in a couple of seconds, you're going to have access to all this information. You can print it out, save it on a hard drive, send it to insurance company in the case that they request the information. There's no limits for backups. You can request as many as necessary. Remember, everything always stays in the platform. We don't delete any information that is created. Restrictions and exemptions, well, we already talked about this. This is if you would like to place a restriction manually into Rover's calendar. But there's some restrictions, remember, that are automatic. If we mark a document, an HR document as required, and we reach the expiration date, the user is not submitting it, we can automatically place a restriction on the Rover. Advanced is where we disable this user once they're no longer delivering service. Again, we don't delete them, we just pass them to an inactive list. This will remove Rover's access to the platform, where you as an administrator will keep the record of everything. If eventually he returns, with a simple click, we can activate his account. From here, you can select avatars. The users can always select the avatars as well, or upload their own avatars or pictures. And as an admin, you can communicate with them. You can send emails, text messages directly to their phone, or you can also ask for a password reset email that will be sent directly to Rover's email address. And with this, we complete all related with the creation of a user and management of a user dashboard. Remember, administrators will have access to this part, but the user, of course, on their dashboard, they get to see some of the information that you add under the manage bar. Now, let's take a look at a client and see the manage part within a client. For that, I will return to my home dashboard. You can always click here. Notice that you have clients and users. You can click here and it will take you directly to there. But even if you click here as well, it will take you to your users and clients dashboard. But I don't know, for some reason, I usually click on home. So we were here on users. So we saw all our user list. Now let's do the same with the client. So if I click on clients, this will take me to my client list. If I need to create a new client, the process is very similar. We can create them manually, click on a new client and completing the information, and this would add the box. Or we can, if we're importing it from other platforms, we can click on import clients, upload a copy of that Excel sheet, and we will pass all the information for the clients at once. Here you have access to active, inactive of discharged clients. And if you click on this show more, it will give you a little bit more information of the chart for that client. If you need more information than the one that we're showing here, remember that you always have the table format, and this applies also for the users, okay? So it would be showing all the clients on a table format with a little bit more information from this window that we're seeing. If we click on any of this client, let me use Angelina as an example, it would take me to what we call the client's dashboard. This client dashboard is where your technicians, your supervisors are going to be doing their day-to-day work. Here is where they create or have access to the events, is where they create documentation depending on the type of service that they're delivering. If they need to collect data, they're going to have all the access for data collection here, and they even get to see the charts, like a quick access for the charts. Required documents, we see all the clinical documentation linked to Angelina. In this case, we can see reports of days that the users work specifically with Angelina. And service plan is where we're going to have all the programs that we're going to be working with these clients. On users, we're going to see the users linked to the clients. And files, we also have this at the user dashboard. This is more like a Dropbox. If there's any records for the client or any documentation that is not like a day-to-day clinical documentation, we can always scan it and put it here on the folder for this client. And we have all those records within the client's dashboard. Again, manage. Only an agency administrator will have access to see and of course add information here in this area. And as an admin, once I create the client, my next step will be to come here and fill up all these tabs that we're seeing. The first one is demographics information. Just complete the information below and then click save. Then we have addresses. These are the service address. We can add as many as necessary. We're always going to include the place of service with the specific code that corresponds to that place of service, so we can include it later on the claims. We can also add the information for the caregivers. Just add the name, relationship, phone number, email. So if we need to reach to that caregiver, it's right there. Then we have referring physicians. Referring physicians, we can add the name, the specialty, the NPI, and the rest of the information, again, depending on the necessities of the company. Remember that we can always add referring physicians manually, or we can select from that list that we created at the agency level, so we don't have to add this information from zero each time. Diagnosis, we can add the diagnosis. We can either add the code or the definition for the code. Both are linked. And then we add medications. This part is optional based on the type of service that you're delivering. Same with pharmacies. This is for certain services. This area is just going to be optional. Then we have insurances. To add insurance, we just click on insurance, and we're going to have here a list of all insurance companies that we created specifically for your agency. So you're going to have the name and the different insurance plans if you have more than one plan per insurance, right? So look for the one that corresponds with the client. So it's going to be shown in a list. Look for the one that corresponds with the client, add the member policy number, the group number if required, and that's pretty much it. If prior authorizations, if you work with prior authorizations, we can add the PAs here as well. And the prior authorization, it's very simple, right? We just add a number, the prior authorization number. We can add the start day and end day. And of course, we're going to keep track of this end day, so you know when you need to request a new prior authorization. Then we're going to start adding the billing codes and the number of units that were approved for each prior authorization. I can add more billing codes down here. And again, I can add the units. As we create events, we're going to be discounting the units of those events. So you know how many units you have used and how many units you have remaining for an authorization period. And this is how it's going to look, right? We're going to have the approved units. If you already use units, this is more for a transfer, a company that is transferring and already used some units. somewhere else. So you tell us here how many units you used, and we're going to be discounted from the total approved units. And again, once you start using Office Puzzle, once you create the events, the discount is going to be automatic, right? We're going to be discounting them automatically. What you see down here, these are more restrictions. And these restrictions, think for a second that you have a user that got approved 4 hours per week, or let's say 5 hours per week. And we would like to limit the maximum number of hours of services. So we can come here where it says maximum units per week, add the amount, and once we reach that total amount, in this case, we're not going to be able to create more events during that week. We'll have to wait until the following week to book more appointments. This is just to prevent misuse of units. We can limit it per day. If we have a maximum number of hours per day, we can limit it per week or per month. Remember that we already at the agency level on the events, we're controlling the maximum number of hours that a user can work. But this is specific to this client. So we can have one limit at the agency level, but then a more strict restriction specifically for the client. Then we have users. Users here, we see all the users that are currently working with Angelina. So all these users, they have access to Angelina's clinical dashboard. Depending on the level of access, what they can do, it's a little bit different, right? So only supervisors, they will have a provider level 2 access, and for supervisors, they usually create and modify the service plan of the client, and they have privileges of reviewing documentation for technician level. So we assign technician levels. In this case will be a provider level 1. I can add multiple users, so I just click on a user and I can create the link from here. If a user is no longer working with the client, remember that we will have to remove that level, that in this case, this access to the user to see the clinical dashboard of the client. Required documents is the clinical document list that we created at the agency level. Here we have all the information for Angelina. So if I have the medical referral, I can mark it as delivered. I can also add an expiration day and upload a copy of the medical referral. We will notify you 30 days in advance once we need to request this document. Backups, we talked about backups already at the user side. This will be to request a backup specifically for this client. We always have the option of selecting what type of document we're going to be backing up, even claims, if you would like to back up the claims as well. And tell us from what time to what time, and we're going to gather all this information, organize it for you, and just in a couple of seconds or minimum a couple of minutes, you're going to have access to all this information in your computer. Restrictions and exemptions, we can always place restrictions to Angelina's calendar. This will prevent users or administrators from creating visits in the client's calendar. Why do I say users and administrator? Because different companies manage this in different ways. Some companies, only administrators are the ones that create visits, and in others, the users themselves create their own visits. We work with both. That's important to leave it very clear here. Just let us know your workflow, and we're going to, in the configuration of the company, we can do those personalizations, okay? Advanced is where we disable the client once Angelina is no longer receiving service, and from here we can always select the avatars from the clients. You can upload your own avatars as well. So this is the most important information on the configuration part of a client. Once we add all this information here, remember that your technicians, your supervisors, they don't have access to this part, but they do get to see information that you added here, like in a read-only format. They get to see the birthday of the client, all the information for the caregivers, they need to reach to that caregiver, also the service address. They can change to clinical. And in clinical, they see the diagnosis, the prioritization, the number of units they have used, and how many units they have remaining. Remember, only units, they don't get to see anything else. Billing and those things is more for the admin dashboard later on. You also have access to this document here. This document is just a PDF that it's like a summary of all the information for the client, even with the programs that we're working with the client at this moment. I find it useful sometimes just to hand it to the caregivers. Once we're doing caregiver training, it's just again like a summary of all that we're working with the client, and if they see that some of the information changed, it's a good opportunity to open that conversation and update it into the platform. Of course, we will have to reach to administrators for the administrators to modify some of this managed information. Now we're going to jump into the clinical part. The clinical, I'm going to try to make it very simple because the clinical part, I would say it's sometimes specific to the type of service that you're going to be delivering. So I'm going to try to make it very generic for all type of service, but we do offer more training specific for one type of service or the other. For the clinical part, the first step is to create a service plan. A service plan is where we tell the system what are the service that Angelina is receiving in this case, and what are the programs within that service. Once we have that service plan ready, then my technicians can, of course, create documentation based on the program, or they can collect data if data is required for that type of service. So let's jump into the service plan. Once I click on service plan, it's going to show me here the service that my company is delivering. If I have a company that delivers multiple services, it's going to look something like similar to what I'm showing right now. In the case of ABA therapy, if I click on ABA therapy, I'm going to have the different categories that I determine as an administrator that my users should usually use, right? But this varies. Each analyst in this case will create their own categories, and they can add it here where it says action, new category, add the name, and what we do is we add a new tab. Once we have those tabs and we select one, we can always add the programs that corresponds to each of those categories. And to add programs, just click where it says new item. And we have 3 ways of adding programs. One is manual. In this case, we just add everything manually, right? The name, the topographical descriptions, the STOs, data configuration. Second option is other clients. If I already created programs with other of my clients, think of a supervisor with multiple cases. I already developed one program with one client, and it's the same program that I would like to implement on this client. I can copy and paste it and modify it if required, but at least I don't have to create them from zero. Third option, we already talked about this, is the library at the agency level. So if I have a library created at my agency level, I'm going to have all those programs here, and I can select the ones that corresponds with the client, and with a simple click, we're going to bring all that information. Important, this is a very generic information. It can always be modified specific for this client once we add it into the service plan. Regardless of the service, actually, I'm going to show you another service plan. So if I click on speech therapy, probably my categories are different. Maybe I'm working with receptive language, expressive language, but see, the principle is the same. I create these main areas, and then I start adding the programs that I'm going to be working specific with each of my clients. Let me show you one more. So if I go to art therapy, we're going to have music, art, and then the different programs that I'm going to be working with the client. So I'm just going to return, and I'm going to show you ABA one more time, because we're going to see each program, all the configuration that we can do. And I'm putting ABA as an example because ABA, it's heavy on data collection. So I would like to show you all the different configuration that you can do within a program. So if I click on this, regardless of the method that you use to add it, either manual from other client or the agency, you're always going to have access to all these tabs. And the first tab is the general tab. Here's where we can add the name of the program, and here's where we can add topographical descriptions if necessary. If it's not required, just simply leave it on blank and the system will work just fine. Then we can add here in data collection what type of data collection we're going to be requesting for this program. And again, this is optional, but we have frequency, count, rate, all the intervals, all the duration ones. We have all the percentage, DTTs, percentage of opportunities, all the task analysis. So the idea is that you select what type of data collection you're going to be requesting for this program, and we're going to take care of all the design for the data sheets and on-site data collection later on for your technicians. As a supervisor, you always are going to have the possibility of modifying this. For example, right now I'm collecting frequency using X. Each X is going to represent an occurrence of event. But again, as a supervisor, I can say, no, I prefer tallies and I would like my description to be incidents. So I can write that here, and from that moment on, this is information that is going to show on those data sheets. It can get more complicated. So what if I would like frequency but with levels of intensity? So in this case, tantrum, I'm going to put tantrum level 1, which is crying, level 2, crying and dropping to the floor, level 3, crying, dropping to the floor and hitting head. So right now, my RBT is not going to collect X anymore or tallies. They're going to select 1, 2, or 3 based on the intensity of the behavior. This is just an example. We're going to have videos that are going to go more in depth on the data configuration part of the service plan. But this is just an idea for you to know how you can modify this data collection, or in this case, how you can personalize your service plan based on whatever you created specifically for your clients. So next step will be charts. Here in chart is where we tell the system what we would like to graph. We have different options here for charting. We have baseline, average, total. We can automatic add condition lines for STOs or objectives when we master them. We can graph intensity rate. We can have graphs with more than 2 axes. The idea is that graphs are personalized to you as well. You decide from the title of the axis. Well, we are going to automatically select all this information for you, at least the most common information, but you can always modify. So you can change the title, you can change the color, the shape of the point, you even can go from line to bar graph. So everything here, again, it's what you vision your graph to look like, and we're going to definitely see more graphs in the following minutes. Then we have objectives. If you work with STOs or LTOs, you can add them here. There are different ways of adding the STOs. I usually recommend the add in multiple format because this is just an empty box. And if you already create them with a simple copy and paste, you can paste them all at the same time. As long as the one below to the other, it will work. So you can import them all at the same time. And the good thing about this is that we're going to be tracking those STOs. If the system detect that one STO it's being met, what we do is we show it the supervisor. In this case, it's not met just yet. We're going to show here a green check mark, and it's just a suggestion, right? We tell that supervisor here, hey, I think that this is met. Are you sure that you would like to move to the following STO? With a simple click, we will automatic pass to the next STO. We also have this generate objective tab. This is a convenient tab. Like if you don't have STOs and you would like to create them for the first time, you can tell us what's your baseline, what is your end goal, and here you tell us, hey, I would like to have 20 STOs, and we include different sentence structures for you, and we create the different sentences. Again, this is completely optional. I personally, if I created them, I will use the add in multiple, but if you're working on initial evaluation, this will save you some time. So then we have baseline. We can have baselines here, days, values, and what that value represents. No limits here. You have different periods here to select as well. Recommendation is optional. This is a tab that is completely optional, but it's a great tool to train, in this case, RBTs once they're delivering service. Why? Because here in recommendations, we can leave what are the antecedents that we have observed prior to this behavior while we're conducting ABCs on our initial assessment. And we can also tell them what are the interventions that we recommend them to use. We do include a bank of common interventions on ABA, but again, the ones that we put here, those are the ones that we recommend to the RBT to use. There are different ways of adding them. You can select them from the drop down. You can just write them here or type them. You also have the option of typed interventions. And this is linked to the data that they're going to be collecting later on, or in this case, their session notes. So if they tell me in a session note that they observed tantrum, the system is going to ask them, yeah, but what happened before the tantrum? What was the antecedent? Did you observe an antecedent? And then we ask them what intervention you used. And then after the intervention, we ask them again, like, hey, what was the result of your intervention? The behavior disappeared in how many minutes or escalated? So it's a way of actually communicating, right, between the platform and the RBT. And of course, this notes that they're writing, it's they give us a lot of information as supervisors as well. So we can always leave this information here. If for some reason they see a new antecedent, they can always write it. Of course, they're not limited to the ones that we're putting here, but they don't have to type it, right? They can, with a simple click, they can select it, and again, speeds up the process for them once they're creating their session notes. Imported data. This is, again, optional. This is to import data that was not collected in Office Puzzle. So if you're coming from paper, Excel, or if you're coming from other platform, probably you already have data over there. So we offer this imported data form where you just copy the information. If you're on Excel, you can copy the column with the dates and the values. If you're coming from another platform, they usually export the data as well in an Excel format. So you copy those columns, you paste them here, and as long as I have a date and a value, any format, I'm showing one specific here, but it's any format the system will understand, we will take all that information and we're going to be graphing each of those data points, even though they were not collected in Office Puzzle. This is more for transfer clients, or as you're coming again from paper or another software. Of course, once we start collecting data in Office Puzzle, all that information is going to be automatic graph. And those are all the tabs that we all the information that we usually require. Are they necessary or required for all services? The answer is no. Based on the type of service that you are delivering, based off your judgment as a supervisor, you're going to be adding information in some of them. Other, you simply leave it on blank, and the system will work without it. Okay. So let's see how we collect data on all of this information. So I'm returning to a client. We were here all this time on service plan. Now I'm going to click on data to collect data. We have two ways of collecting data. We have data sheets and we have the on-site data collection. On-site was initially designed for a mobile app, but it can be used on a computer, just like I'm going to show you in the following minutes. Both are linked. That's very important. So the user is the one that decides which method to use. Data only one. We're just going to show it on two different visualizations. From here, you're also going to have access to graphs. If you need to do some data analysis, you can also do it here. If you need to extract data, like raw data, you can do here, but usually to collect data, think of technicians, they're going to be using these two here. So if I click on on-site, it will take me to, in the case of if I'm delivering more than one service, remember I'm an administrator, so I have access to all the programs, but if you're a regular user, you're going to have access to the program that you're linked to, right? So if I click on ABA, Maladaptive Behaviors, we're going to see the same programs that we were just touching a few minutes ago on the service plan. I'm going to have boxes. Each box represents a program. So if I see tantrums here and I see a tantrum with my client, I just click on the positive and it's going to count the tantrum. If I see another one, I just click. If I see another one, I just click again. This is very, very simple. The difference between one and the other, see that the design is a little bit different, is that it varies based on the type of data collection. So if I select anything with duration into response time, we include those stopwatches for the user to record the duration of that incident. If we would like to record levels of intensity, I think that I put an example when we were doing the configuration for tantrum. In this case, I already have it set up for self-biting. RBTs can always see the intensity here, the behavior. In this case, 1 is an attempt, 2 is a visible mark, 3 is a laceration. So if I see attempts, if I see 3 attempts, I will mark 1, 2, 3 attempts of self-biting. And then I see a visible red mark, well, I will mark a 2 right here. Technicians are always going to have access here on information to see the topographical descriptions of behaviors if we include topographical descriptions. If we leave instructions of how to collect the behavior, they can see it here as well. If we're working with STOs, they see the current STO. If we leave interventions, they get to see here what are the interventions that we recommend them to use with this specific client. They also have access to graphs, and the graphs, they're personalized, like I said before. You decide the title of the axis, you decide the shape and color of each of these data points. In this case, this is a graph with an extra axis here. So we're graphing number of occurrences, frequency, but we're also graphing the intensity of the behavior with those bars that we're seeing. You can always hide it if you don't want to see it. But again, this is personalized. These lines that you see here, you can add them. We call them condition lines. Just right click and you can add them. We have dash, we have solid. You can also add labels. And we're going to see more of that in a few minutes. Who can add this? Usually, in this case, will be provider level 2s or supervisors are the ones that get to modify that look and feel of the graph. Technicians, what they can do is collect data, and as they collect data, we automatically add that information to the graph. Let me show you this one. This one is actually one that is very common, where we show the baseline separated from the rest of the data that the technicians are collecting. So I would say that this is the most basic graph, but you decide everything here. If you would like to remove the grids on the back, you can do so. If you would like to add labels, you can do so. Condition line, same. Okay, so this is on-site data collection. We're going to have the category. So if I change to another category, I'm going to have all different programs here, right? The ones that correspond to this category. These are more percentage, so trials, either the client will complete the program or not. So I'm going to be marking based on the response of the client. If we're conducting task analysis, we're going to have all the steps here. So the first step for brushing teeth is turn on water. So positive with toothbrush, yes, the client did it. The third step, yes, and then after the fourth, it was a completely non-compliance, so I will mark all as negative. But I get to see again step by step what the client needs to complete. These are just examples. Again, this varies. There are more than 16 different types of data collection in Office Puzzle. Based on those data collection, we're going to be designing this data boxes, let's call it that way. So that was on site. What's the difference between the on-site and data sheets? Data sheets, I like to call it old school ABA. These data sheets, we used them years ago when we didn't have like digital programs to collect data. We used to have like old paper data sheets. And what we did is we took that and we digitalized them, right? We add all the information automatic from your company. We add the name of the client, the name of the program. If we have descriptions, we add topographical descriptions of instructions. We also add the current STO if we add STOs on the program for the client. And if you look at today's day, in this case it's July 10th, we already see those 3 incidents of tantrum that we just collected a few seconds ago on the on-site. So both are linked, both are connected. The technician is the one that decides which method to use, because if I'm here on these data sheets and I'm signing the information, I'm reviewing the progress, and I see more tantrums, I don't need to go back. I can simply, if I see a tantrum, click on it. If I see another one, I click on it. And we will take care of all the math for you. So total of incidents per day, total of incidents per week, per month, and we also add the initials of the person that is collecting data. So if you have multiple technicians, you know who collected that what. If I go back to my on-site and I look for that tantrum, I don't see 3 anymore, I see 5. So the idea is that data, it's 1, but we show it on 2 different areas, right? One is the on-site, the other ones are the data sheets. You're also going to have the different categories here, depending on the type of data collection. It's going to look different, right? If we're running trials, we're going to be selecting positive or negative based on the response of the client, and the math is going to be based on whatever trials you run. Again, initials, you can also signed documentation. So if RBT needs to sign or supervisors need to sign, we can add the information that here on the signature box. From charts, you're going to also have access to the graph. We're going to be graphing by default the last 6 months of service, but you can select specific time frames that you would like to see as a supervisor. And you can also add labels. I think that I mentioned this already. Once you add them, you can move them and place them where they need to be. You can add markers. Markers is for longer description. So a marker is a symbol that we insert on our graph, and then we add a legend down here with that description. You can add condition lines, solids, and dash if necessary. Also, you can change the interval. So here I have it by default weekly, but it could be, you can also see it per session if necessary. everything can be printed out. So remember the backups. In the backups, if you request a backup for data sheets, we bring all those records for the time that you select, and you can export all these on PDF and save it, show it to an insurance company in the case of they're requesting to see the records for the data collection. So data sheets are completely optional. They're there. They're going to be linked to the on-site. So it's a good to have here. Oh, here you can print it out. There's also a process of revision. So as a supervisor, I can come here and I can just sign all of them. I can mark them as reviewed. And again, this is optional. It depends on the workflow that you have today with your supervisees. You also have this option that says Evaluate Objective. This is linked to STOs. So if I click on Evaluate Objective, it will bring all the programs for my client. And if the system detects that a program is being met, we're going to show these end dates here. Meaning that as a supervisor, I can just click where it says accept all, and automatic we change STO 6 of self-biting, it will automatically change it to STO 7. And in the case of screening, it will be changed from 3 to 4. So if I need to see more in detail, I can always open it. And here I'm looking at 24 incidents or less of self-biting for 4 consecutive weeks, and in this case is what I have right now. So I have 18, I have 12, I have 9, and then on my 4th week I have 7 incidents, which mean that all of them for 4 consecutive weeks were less than 24. So that's the reason why we're suggesting this day. And what I say suggesting is because we're not going to master anything automatically without you approving it first. So as a supervisor, you can decide and say, no, I would like to wait another week, or there was something going on this particular week with an environmental change. So you decide if you would like to master it or not. But again, it's going to be only with a simple click. You can accept them all here, and we automatically pass them. Well, this was I would say the most common information. Wrapping up, all the tables are going to be designed based on the type of data collection that you decide. So if you select levels of intensity, it's going to be something like this, right? Where the BT or the technician is going to be selecting the level of intensity based on the occurrence of the behavior. If we go to DTTs with trials, we're going to have positive and negative. If we are working with task analysis, remember the task analysis that we were running, we're going to see it here. They also get to see all the steps from the data sheets as well. So this was everything about data collection. Of course, we're going to have a more in-depth training based on the service plan. Once we reach the service plan, we're going to touch more the configuration of the data sheets. But I think that we covered pretty much all, right? We saw the data sheets, we saw data collection, the on-site, the graph, and the print out it option if you need it here. So I'm going to return to the client's dashboard. And now we're going to talk about creation of events on the calendar. To create events, we always have to reach the calendar. In this case, we're reaching the calendar of the client, and we're going to see the current week. We can see previous week. We can even change the visualization to month if necessary. To create an event, I need to click on the day, and I'm going to select the type of visit that I'm going to be creating. Remember that we created 3 different types of visits: appointments, evaluations, and supervisions. In this case, I'm an administrator, meaning that I can create all of them. And even if I select one specific, and if I have multiple users, I can also select the user that I'm creating the event for. But if we allow the user to create the visits themselves, we don't ask them who they are. We automatically just bring them to this window that we see here because they're validated with their accounts. We already know who they are. So we ask them, what's the place of service? And in this case is home, and I select from what time to what time I work. So I work from 9 to 11 a.m. What billing codes I'm using? Well, these are the billing codes that my company is allowing me to use, as in this case as Robert creating this event, which is a technician. So we select here the billing code, and we automatic add the hours and the units, and we're going to be discounting those hours and units from the prior authorization linked to the in this case to the client, right? The current prior authorization. So if I click on save and close, we're going to see that the event is already added on that calendar. Now, if I need to record travel distance, we're going to have these options here for travel details. This is if we added at the company level that we're going to be tracking driving time. If we are using EVV with geolocation, the user, they can't modify this. They will have a mobile app and they will clock in and clock out based on once they reach the place of service and once they leave. And once they clock in and clock out, what we do is that we automatically substitute that clock in and clock out. From here, they're also going to have options to capture digital signatures in the case that the company requests digital signatures for the caregivers. So we click on capture signature, we will have to give the device to the caregiver. It could be the phone, the tablet, the computer, and they're going to enter their full name and their signature below. And once they do that, it's going to show here as a signature of the caregivers was already, in this case, is linked to this particular event. If we click on link the documents, we're going to see the documentation that is linked to this particular visit. And this varies from service to service, right? I'm just going to show two common templates. One is the service log and the other one is the appointment note. In the case of a service log, we're going to have, it's a very simple document. We bring all the visits for the user for the week and we put it on a table format. This is an example of a supervision log. It's a very simple document. And again, like I was saying, it will include a list of all the visits that technician in this case conducted during that week. We will show the days, the hours, the units, the place of service, and if caregiver signs, we're going to show the name and the information, in this case the signature for that caregiver with the validation that you request on your configuration for your company. So this is just optional. Some companies request service logs, others don't. It's just an example of a common template in this case. Everything can be printed out, saved, like all the rest of the templates in Office Puzzle. The other document is the appointment note. The appointment note is, it could be called a session note, a sub note. So this is just an example of an approach of a session note. And here, what we do is we bring, of course, it's personalized to your company. We bring all the information for the client, the name, all the providers' information. If you need to add participants, we can add a drop down to select participants. Same with environmental changes, medical concerns. We can also bring list of all the programs that are linked specific to this client, so you can select the ones that you are working with the client. And then we bring information from the visit itself with the day, the place of service, the time in, time out, hours, billing codes. And here is where you type your session note. All that you see in here, again, is personalized to you. If you already have a template created with drop downs, with check boxes, let us know and we can modify it, we can personalize it. But this is a very common template to use in the case of ABA therapy. We always going to include the AI in our notes or in our documentation. So an AI, it's simply a questionnaire. So we start asking you questions about the service that you offered with the client. You can select the place of service, who was present. Again, those are questions related to the visit itself, the teaching techniques that you used. And then we bring all the different services. For example, if you did a direct implementation or you conduct a protocol modification, supervision, family training, this is going to be linked to your credential. Of course, if it's a technician, we'll do direct implementation. But if it's a supervisor, of course, we're going to include more questions here. So the idea is that once you select the type of service that you're delivering, we're going to bring all the programs for the client. And based on the programs, we start asking you questions. In the case of a behavior, we ask you how that looked like in the case of having different topographies. and we ask you what antecedents you observed, you can always type here or select from the list of those common antecedents that usually happened with this client with this behavior. You can always select interventions that you conducted. In this case, we show a list of the ones that the analyst is recommending you to use, and you can also tell us what was the result. What was the result of that intervention, right? If the behavior de-escalated or if escalated, you can always tell us here what happened after you conducted that intervention. In the case of the skill acquisition programs, questions are a little bit different, because we want to know what activities you did in order to teach the client that specific skill, what level of prompt you used, or what type of reinforcers you use. We always put the preferred reinforcers for the clients first, but there's a bank of reinforcers, so you can always type. Remember that everything here is personalized to what happened during the visit. And like I say, it's a questionnaire linked to AI. It will take all that information, it will analyze it, and I will put on a paragraph format for you. You will have to read it, of course, and add more details if necessary, but at least you don't have to type every single word. Remember that you also have the option of adding voice to text. So here you can transcribed, in this case in English. I can say that service was conducted at the family home and mother was present. Upon arrival, the client engaged in an incident of tantrum that looked like this, and when I stop my recording, it will take all the information that I was saying. So it's a voice to text option. We also have an option here for Spanish speaker users. They can also do it in Spanish. They can read everything in Spanish, and we automatically going to translate everything to English in this case. So of course I can modify it and add the information here. So signatures, we can add here. In this case, we have the provider's signature. Just click on sign. The provider is going to enter their name. Let me just put this as an example. And once we sign, we're going to show the signature and the validation based on the requirements of that you selected at the configuration level. If you need more signatures, think of supervisors or caregivers. We can also add here on the document itself. All documentation is going to have a reviewing process, and this reviewing, before we jump into the reviewing process, you're always going to have access to data collection here as well. And if I go to maladaptive behaviors, we're going to see the 5 incidents of tantrum that we just collected. So if you're writing your note and you see you need to collect data, you always have access to the live data from here. I think that that's important, and it's linked to the on-site and the data sheets that I show you during the presentation. So now reviewing process of documentation. The document is going to be unlocked by default, meaning that the user is actively working on this documentation. Once they're done, they can send it for revision by clicking on ready for review. And look, this is very interesting. I have some fields that are required for me to send it to review, and I didn't complete them, right? So if there's certain areas that are required, we just verify it so we don't send something for revision that is incomplete. So, but if everything is fine, I will send it for revision. My supervisor will receive a notification that the document is ready, and that supervisor is the one that can reject. If they find some errors, they just reject it and they can leave the revision for rejection, or if everything is fine, they can review it. So that would be the process for revision. Now, if there's certain restrictions on your insurance company of completing documentation in a certain period of time, we also work with what we call auto lock, and this auto lock will technically lock the documentation once a certain period of time has passed. This time you decide based on the restrictions of your company, and that's how it works, right? We're going to be discounting the time, and once we reach the maximum, the documentation is going to be shown as automatic locked. And well, this was just as an example of a documentation. Everything can be modified here. I usually say that to companies that use Office Postal, they don't have the same documentation. So think of this document as was required by your insurance companies. Put it on a document, on a PDF, on a Word, give it to us, and that's what we're going to show here on Office Puzzle. There's other documents that we can also generate. So we mentioned the appointment note, the service log. We can also generate supervision logs. This is a document that is linked more for supervision. So what we do is we bring all those 53 XP events or supervision events with the dates, the duration, the mode, the structure, if it was observed or not with the client, and the evaluation. And if you need to write a supervision note, you can do it here. We're going to bring also all the total of hours that RBT worked during that month, and we're going to be calculating the at least 5% supervised hours, the at least 2 face-to-face contact, and at least 1 direct observation with the client. So right now everything is unmatched because I don't have any information, but once we have those XP events or supervision events, we can add them here. We can also add indirect supervision in the case of indirect supervision. We can do drop downs, we can do check boxes here as well, but the idea is that we track that 5% supervised hours for our technicians. This can be printed out, this can be saved as well. Other document that we can generate, we call it monthly data reports or 6-month data reports. You decide the time, and we can also create evaluations, assessments, or reassessments. This varies significantly from each insurance company. So if you have your templates created, and even from I say insurance company, but even from analyst to analyst, this varies as well. So if you have a template created today as a clinical director, we can put it, and that's going to be the template that all your users are going to be abide, right? So if I click on monthly summary, what we do is we bring all the data that the users collected and we put it on a document format, right? We bring the data for the last 6 months of service, and then we start bringing all the programs with the descriptions, the STOs up to date, and then also the graphs as well. If at this point you need to make any modifications, for example, you forgot to add a label to your graph, you can always add it, insert it, and it's going to be there. And then you have all different examples. These are just different examples of configuration for graphs that you can do. And then we want to have all the programs here. At the end, you can, if these signatures are required, we can add those signature boxes there. Alrighty, so wrapping up about documentation. These clinical documentations is what you have today in your company. We take them, we digitalize them, and we put them here. If you would like to start with our templates, we usually include this by default, and if you would like to make modifications on them, we can always work during the onboarding process with that. If you're delivering more than one type of service, we're going to have the list here, and each documentation is going to appear based on the type of service. This is the visualization that I have because I'm an admin. I will have access to everything in my company. If I'm a user linked to a specific service, I'm only going to be seeing that service there. And well, that was the most important information on the clinical side. Now we're going to jump into the admin area of the platform. We're going to see a little bit of billing, a little bit of payroll as well. So I'm just going to reach back to my home dashboard. I'm going to click on my agency, and we're going to start talking about expiring documents. I mentioned on the configuration how you create lists of clinical documents and HR documents, and how in the profile of users and clients we update the information and we keep track of the expiration date. Now, how do you know what is expiring at your agency level? Because you don't have to go client by client, user by user. That would be a lot of work, right? So just click on expiring documents, and we will show you all that is expiring in your company the next month. You can always change the time frame, but a month is usually more than enough, right? So we have clinical documents, we have HR, we have prioritizations and credentials. If I click on clinical documents, I see that the medical referral of John is expiring in 6 days. If I already have that document, I can always click here, edit, add the new expiration date, upload a copy of the new document, and then click update. And it will disappear from my list because it's already submitted, right? It's going to expire in a year, and a year is going to pop out again once it's about to expire. Same with the chart. So if I click on a chart, I see that all these documents are expiring on the following days. For example, this one of Robert is expiring in 13 days. At this point, we have been sending emails to Robert, so he knows that he needs to renew it. If he submits the document, let me play with the platform a little bit. I'm going to see it here in this status that says pending. So if I see something that says pending, it means that the user, I'm allowing him to upload the document and he did it already, right? So as an admin, I will have to click here, edit, verify that whatever he uploaded here is the correct document. And if it is, I will put the new expiration day. I will mark it as delivered and I will click on update and it will disappear. Okay. If I see that in 12 hours, this is going to expire, application form. This doesn't make any sense, but well, just pretend for a second that it's a document that is expiring actually today. And the user still not submitting it. I can send text messages directly to Pedro's phone. And I can type here, hey Pedro, this is the last day. If you don't submit on time, I will have to place your account under restriction, for example. You can send emails, but we have been sending for the past month. So a new prompt here would be a better tool, in this case, to notify the user. Prior authorizations, this is to check for prior authorizations that are about to expire, or in this case, expired already. It's a great tool to know when to start working on a reassessment or asking for a new authorization period. Same with credentials. If you have credentials that are expiring, you don't have to go to the portals of the credentials to verify the users. Well, actually, you always have to do that, but this is more like once we reach the expiration day, like 30 days in advance, let me just go and verify that the user renew their credentials. And it's a way of notifying administration, right, that you need to review it. And think of this when you have a lot of users working on your company. It's a good reminder. So expiring documents is to check for expiration at the agency level. You're always going to have something that I didn't mention. You're always going to have filters. So once you reach a certain number of clients, you're going to have a lot of documentation here. So you can filter by clients, even by document types. Save with HR, you can filter by providers and document types as well. So that was the talk on expiring documents. Next will be reports and documents. These two are very similar, so I'm going to explain them at the same time. Both are search tools. Reports is to look for events, information, while document is to look for clinical documentation and revision, right? So if I click on reports, the first thing that I'm going to see, these are like a search tool, these are filters. So I can select specific time frame that I'm looking for. I can filter by providers, I can filter by clients, even event types. The thing is that if I click on search, it's going to bring me down here the information that I selected on my filters. So I'm seeing right now all events that occurred on my company from the 30s to the 6th. And I'm going to see the dates, I'm going to see the time, the location, the hours, the unit, what client, what user, billing codes, even the prior authorization linked to that particular event. If I need to go to that event, I just can access the event from here. See those X's there? These are not common. I'm seeing them because this is a demo company and usually processes are not completed. But if you see in your company access at this point, just check them out because it's something that it's probably that something is missing with that event. So if I step here, it's telling me that a signature is missing. It's telling me that the documentation is not reviewed. So everything here in a regular company, if I'm reviewing last week, should be with a green check mark. If I see X, I will always have to see what's going on with that visit that seems to be incomplete. If I put here Robert, let me use some of the filters. It will only show me Robert's visit. So last week, Robert worked 14.25 hours. So this is an example of how you can use the different filters. Documents, you will see that it's very similar. So we will have the time frame. We're going to have the filters of providers, clients. But what we're going to be looking here, these are events. Not events, documentation. So I have different document types. So if I'm reviewing our appointment notes and I click search, these are all the appointment notes for my users for this week. I'm going to see here status as well. Let me see if I have more status. Let me see last week. So, here, this is what I want to show you. See the status here? This gives us some information about the documentation. And this is the cheat sheet. Remember when we were talking about status in the document? We're going to have unlocked, meaning that the user is working on it. Ready for review is that the user is done with the documentation and sent it for revision to the supervisor. And then if I see something rejected, is that the supervisor say that something was wrong. And then review is that the documentation is reviewed by the supervisor. Log can only be placed by an agency administrator, and this will signal the software that the event is it's review, it's all the reviewing process is done and it's ready to be billed to the insurance company. So this is how it's going to look with the different status. It's very helpful to see here that Robert did his documentation on time, but actually is waiting for the supervisor to review it. And well, these are reviewed and the rest are logged. From here, you're going to have access to the document. So if you click on the I, it will take you to that documentation. So as an admin, you can always review it, right? So you will have access to the documentation. Something that I didn't mention on the session notes, you're always going to have access to this similar document tab that this checks for plagiarism. So if you need to check for plagiarism, just click here and we will take that session note and we will compare it with previous session notes, around 200 documents for that same user. And if we find similarities, we'll give you a percentage and we'll tell you exactly what's the note and you can compare them both. So this is a great tool for QA at the agency level. So again, a search tool for documentation. Here you can also download documentation. So if you need to export documentation, you can use this, but I personally prefer the backup tab that I show you on the admin side. Now, let's talk about billing and payments. There are different ways of doing billing, right? You can always do manual billing, meaning that you can go to your portal, your insurance portal, and manually import the information. You can do a mix of both, where we generate reports and you can copy from Office Pulse and paste it into your billing portal. Or the third option is clearinghouse. Regardless of the method, we always start in Office Pulse by creating what we call a batch claim. So let's click on billing and we're going to create a batch claim. A batch claim is going to represent a period of billing. And here I'm going to create a new batch and I'm going to select what's the insurance company that I'm submitting. So I'm just going to select one as an example. And I'm going to click on create. This will create a folder, let's call it that way, a folder, with all the information that we need to submit to that insurance company. Right now, this folder is empty. I have 0 claims, so I'll have to start adding my claims. To add claims, I just click here. And we usually add from events because everything is already on the platform. And remember, at this moment, we already have the visits created, we have the documentation, we have all the documentation reviewed with the green check mark that I was mentioning on the report session. And that green check mark tells me that the events are ready to be billed. So I'm going to click on events and I'm going to select from what time to what time I'm billing. And the time you decide. Usually agencies bill the past week, it could be the past 15 days, it can be the past month. You decide, you will have, as an administrator, you will have your billing periods in your company. We work with whatever you are used to do today. And usually we bill everything, right? All providers or credential types, everything that we have ready to the insurance company. So I'm not going to apply any filters here. I'm just going to submit. And this will bring all my clients that have visits during that time frame that I selected. And I'm going to see the list of my clients, the hours, the units, and we see those X's there again. So if I open here Emily, we'll see all the visits for Emily with all the time in, time out, location, the clients, the Robert, billing code, prior authorization. But again, we see that something is missing. So documentation in this case is not reviewed. That QA process at the agency level haven't happened just yet. If we detect any other errors, we're going to show you here. The idea is that once we reach to this point, everything is, all the processes are completed. So the person that is doing billing, we have a green check mark in all these clients. Okay, that's important. Let me just repeat myself. Once we're doing billing in a regular agency that is following all the reviewing process, everything should be here with the green check mark. And that person, the only thing that they need to do is click on the clients and click on continue. I would definitely recommend you to open client by client and review it one last time, just to verify that we have all the common visits, that we should have all the billing codes, okay? So I click on continue. We usually merge events here. And here we do all other validations. For example, if we're missing an NPI or an MPI, it's not validated, or we're missing an insurance number, we tell you here. So we guarantee that once you submit this information, it's not going to be denied just for something silly like missing an MPI, right? So here we have all the billing for the time frame that I selected. And now I'm going to explain the three methods that I was mentioning at the beginning. First one, it's completely manual, meaning that you have access to a portal to submit your claims. In that case, you're going to open your first client, you're going to have the list of all your visits, you're going to have the information that you need to bill, and you're going to start clicking visit by visit, and you're going to submit it manually to that portal. Once you're done, you're going to click on the status and you're going to tell us that this was submitted. So we know that we're done with that client, and then we're going to go to the next, and then to the next, and then to the next. Once those claims get paid, you can always come back here and tell us, hey, this is paid. So you keep track of whatever was submitted and also if it was paid or not. This is option number one. Option number two would be a semi-automatic. For that, we have the A37P file. This is standard for any insurance company, for any clearinghouse. And once you create the claim, you can download the A37P file. That this will contain the list of all your clients with all the visits that are within them. So we put all that information on this unique file that's going to be downloaded to your computer. So you will go to your portal where it could be the insurance portal, it could be a clearinghouse portal, and they usually have an option of uploading an A37P file. So just upload the file that we generate here in Office Puzzle, submit, and that will copy all this information and paste it over there. So it's way faster. You're going with one file submitting all the information that I'm showing you right now. Of course, they respond with A35. You can upload into Office Puzzle, and we're going to be validating all those status if they were paid or not for each of these claims. So that was second option. Third option is clearinghouse. Well, actually on the second option, we also have the 1500 form. If you need to create or submit claims using the 1500 form, just click here and we can always generate it as well. Third option will be clearinghouse. So we do all the configuration for the clearinghouse that you're connected with, and here you're going to have a submit button, and we send information directly to the clearinghouse, and they will process the information for you. And this is not a billing training. This is just a very basic demonstration of how to create a batch claim and how to manage the different visits of the client, the different claim status. But well, we definitely offer more in-depth training once you have your account, and once you're ready to do billing, we sit down again and we walk you to all that process. Payments works very similar. So in payments, you can create a batch payment. So here you tell the system from what day to what day you're going to be paying your users. And we generate a table very similar to what I show you on billing claims, right? We have, instead of showing the clients, we show the name of each of your users, the number of hours that they work with the billing code, and there's if there's a rate associated to that billing code, we do all the calculation based on the total amount that you should pay them. If you're connected with the payroll company, we can submit all this information similar to a 37P file, and we copy all the list of your users, the number of hours, the total amount based on their rate, and they will take care of all the deductions and paying your users. So works very similar, but this is more for payroll purposes. Let me just show you one example of how a table can look like. I think this one will have some visits here. So this is just an example of a preview, right? If you need to see like a more organized document, so we're going to have the initials, we're going to have the billing code that they used. They're going to have here the days that they work, the number of hours, the rate, and all the total amount. And this is what we're going to be submitting to the payroll companies. So of course here we only have one rate, but we have users with different rates. We show them according to their billing code. Wrapping up, let's talk about training. Let's talk about support. So you're always going to have, on your users, you're going to have access to this question mark up here, and this will take you to the Academy. The Academy is an online school with lectures on how to use the platform. We're going to have different chapters with videos there explaining all that I mentioned today during the presentation is on the Academy. But we try for the platform to be intuitive enough so you don't have to go over the Academy, and for that we offer the online chat. It's this blue dot down here. We have been seeing it during the presentation. This is a live chat from Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you have any questions during while using the platform, you're a new technician, you can always reach to us. And again, it's not a bot, it's a live chat. We know who you are and what part of the system, and we're going to be more than happy to walk you if you have any questions. We also have blogs. We write here about different topics related to the field. And like I mentioned during the presentation as well, you're going to have an account manager assigned to your company. This person is going to walk you through the onboarding process. It's going to make sure that all the configuration is ready prior to creating clients and users. And it's also going to give you any training that you may need in the future, for example, billing training or payroll. And you can always call them or book live presentations. As well. From here, another details, for example, we're going to be notifying you if there's a birthday coming up, if there's an announcement. As an administrator, you can send announcements to your users. This will be in the form of mass emails, and also we're going to notify them here once they log in into the platform. Now, let's talk about pricing. Pricing, we're very transparent on our pricing. You can find it on our website. So I'm just going to open here our website. And where it says pricing, you're going to find that for a company, for an agency, we charge $19.99 per user per month. A user is any person that accesses the platform. So one technician is one user. One technician with 10 clients, still one user. So we don't charge per client. And everything is included. All the clinical aspect, all the clinical documentation, personalization, all the admin features, notifications, HR documentation notifications, everything that is related with billing, with payroll, online support. We have a mobile app with Android and iOS is also included in our pricing. So it's $19.99 per user per month, and you pay that amount directly into the platform once you have an invoice ready. Okay, so it was a pleasure showing the platform today. If you have any future questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You have the online chat, like I mentioned, but you can also email us, and we're going to be more than happy to answer all those questions. Again, my name is Lauren, and it was a pleasure showing you Office Puzzle today. I wish you a great rest of the week. Have a good one.